Hey everyone, it's Jonathan, and welcome to the season finale of Every Version Ever. Just as we started off our Christmas series with an unconventional episode talking about the book Old Christmas by Washington Irving, we are now ending our series with an unconventional episode. Stanford Clark is joining me to talk about 3 short films by Alfonso Cuarón. All 3 are adaptations in their own way, one from a letter, one from a book, and one from a true event. I first heard about these films a couple months ago when the most recent one was announced, An Almost Christmas Story. This was a stop-motion animated film loosely based on the true story of an owl that got stuck in the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. I immediately knew I wanted to talk about the short just based on the trailer, so I started looking into it, and the articles I was finding were referring to it as the final of 3 films from Alfonso Cuarón. So I looked up the other 2 and recognized them as films I'd maybe heard about but never watched. Last year was The Shepherd, starring John Travolta, an adaptation of a book by the same name, and the year before that was an Italian film called Le Pupille. None of these films really had anything to do with each other, except they are roughly half-hour short films based around Christmas by Alfonso Cuarón, but they all looked very unique, and I thought they would make for a great discussion. So had you seen any of these shorts before I suggested we do a podcast on them?
No, and John, truth be told, I never even knew they existed.
Oh,
So
really?
I think I maybe had seen some kind of promotion for The Shepherd.
Uh-huh.
And I guess no, I lied. Is Les Pupille that if I'm saying that right, that I had never even heard of before. I saw John C. Riley on Good Morning America promoting an Almost Christmas Story,
Okay.
but I didn't realize that was part of this trio of films until after I started watching it to prepare for this. So I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that's one of the ones I'm watching with John or talking about with John. But how about you? What was your how did you know about them?
Well, I didn't realize that they were all connected until the Almost Christmas Story came out, and I started looking into that one, and then it was talking about it was the final of 3 films that Alfonso Cuarón was producing for Disney Plus. So then I looked up the other 2 and I was like, oh wait, I remember seeing a trailer for The Shepherd last year
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I saw the trailer and I briefly considered doing a podcast on it because I was doing a podcast on a bunch of Christmas shorts that had been released, but I was mostly doing animation, so I decided not to include that one. And then I never ended up watching it. And I think I saw something about Les Pupilles at some point, but I don't know that I ever watched a trailer. I know I'd seen something, but I didn't have any idea what it was about. So that one was basically new to me. The Shepherd was the only one that I had remembered seeing, and then I didn't realize that they were all connected, or at least connected by the producer. They're not narratively connected by anything.
yeah,
But yeah, I ended up really liking these. They're not like ones that are going to be like, oh, we've got to watch this every year.
yeah. I agree. I didn't feel like any repeatability, but they were all, I think, very charming in their own way.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about them in release order. So,
Great.
Le Pupille first. I did watch this twice. I watched it once in English and once in Italian, just to see the difference. I think I liked it better in Italian.
Yeah, I watched it in Italian, and I speak Italian.
Oh, okay.
I lived in Italy for a couple of years during my college. When I was in college, I did a religious mission there for my church, and
Okay.
I kept up my Italian. I mean, I'm by no means a pro, but I'm fluent, and it was so much fun to want to watch it in Italian, and also I felt like it had just a very Italian sensibility just to the production, of it,
Hmm.
because it just felt very much like you're watching a foreign film. I just yeah, it was so that made a lot of fun. But I didn't watch it in English. Maybe I should, John. But I did not watch it in English.
It was fine in English. I think they did get a good voice cast. They were all like voice actors, so it wasn't like celebrities doing voices. Because
Okay.
I thought I recognized somebody, and I looked them up, and it was just a long list of like anime and video games.
Yeah.
So they got good voice actors. No one ever really took me out of it. But watching them both, I think I preferred watching it in Italian,
Yeah.
just because like it is an Italian film, so it just
Right.
felt more authentic that way.
Yeah. It really is. No, I don't know. See, the director, Alice Rohrwacher, if I'm saying her name right, I don't know. Oh, she is Italian. I'm just looking her up. I mean, that name is just like that, especially that last name, that's not Italian at all. But yeah, she was born in Tuscany. So fun.
I maybe the last name is German.
Yeah, it sure looks German to me, John. But yeah,
Oh,
maybe I don't
yeah,
know if that's
Italian mother and German father. So
Okay. Okay.
I was not familiar with her. So,
Yeah, I don't I'm that was this is the first one of her works that I've seen.
well, what did you think of the story of this one?
Well, I don't wish to be rude, John, but I'm really grateful I never went to Catholic school because that's just kind of like what and again, maybe it's all been informed from movies, but it always just seems like, and then also just my time in Italy, meeting people or talking to school kids or whatever. It's like, oh, I don't know. That just sure doesn't seem appealing to me. But
Hmm.
anyway, I thought it was actually quite charming and just an interesting story, an interesting slice of life. I thought that the child actors were very endearing, particularly the main girl.
Yes, Serafina.
Yes, Serafina
She
was
was
just
adorable.
she was so yes, it's just as I thought too. She was so cute, so adorable, and I thought that the director really pulled a wonderful, got a very wonderful performance out of her too, as well as just the way it was. I just loved how the film was shot because again, it felt like it was very much felt like it was an Italian film, which clearly it was, but
Hmm.
just the cinematography, the whole sensibility. I liked the time period it was set in. Anyway, just I thought it was just really charming.
Yeah, I did too. I liked I didn't like I didn't really like the nuns, but I don't think you were really
Well,
supposed
you're not
to.
supposed to. I know, right? It's just like saying things like, I don't want to go to Catholic school if that's what the nuns are like.
Yeah, I'm sure there probably is some that are fine, but I've not like from people who have gone to Catholic school, this is kind of the vibe that I get that
Yeah,
might have
exactly.
been
And again,
similar to their experience.
yeah, I mean, I hate to be, stereotyping, the nuns, but oh man, they just look mean.
Even like for a brief moment towards the end, the one they called Mother Superior, I thought that she was maybe going to have a bit of a change of heart because, well, I guess we could go through the story a little bit because
Yes.
these kids are all getting ready for a play, like a nativity play, and there's this woman who comes to visit them who wants them to pray for her beloved. And like I'm not Catholic, I'm not too familiar with some of the more obscure beliefs, but like is this a belief that Catholics have? Do you know, like having orphans pray for somebody and that's more powerful than you praying for somebody?
It was new to me, John. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I was a bit confused by why it was so important to this woman that the girls pray for her beloved. But then they have the nativity play and like everybody is coming to visit them to have the girls pray for different people who are like off
Yeah,
in the war or sick. So it must be a thing.
exactly.
But then there's also this other thing going on where while they're getting ready for this play, they're listening to the radio and like it's the news, like news of the war. I think this is set in World War II. But while they're listening to the radio, the Mother Superior has to go and help another girl who is sick, who's coughing. I thought it was kind of funny. You can hear her coughing through the whole film, like in the background.
Yes.
I liked that detail.
I did too. And I'm glad you brought that up because I just thought this movie had so many layers going on
Yes.
throughout the whole thing. And yeah, just that level of detail. I just thought there was a lot of craftsmanship that
Hmm.
went on with this, which really added to the enjoyment of it for me, including the cough. We just there was lots of stuff like that.
So she goes off to help this girl who's coughing, and Serafina has dropped part of her costume, so she goes to pick it up, and it's close to the radio. And because of her proximity to the radio, the signal changes a bit, and they're picking up a different station, which starts playing a song. I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation. Ba Ba Baciami Paccinia.
Yeah.
It's about kissing.
Yeah,
And the
it's a
nun comes
kissing
back and
song.
freaks out.
Yeah, the nun's so mad.
Like I didn't even realize at first like why she was so upset, and then is washing everybody's mouth out with soap until they started talking about the lyrics. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess a nun probably would hate that.
Right.
But then you have Serafina who says she didn't sing along with the song, but she says that basically thinking about the words is worse than singing them. So her sin is greater than everybody else's and calls her wicked. So that sticks with her and becomes important for later. And then you have the nativity play on Christmas Eve. And I really liked how they set up this play. I liked all the costumes. I
Oh, I
liked the
did
way
too. I loved it.
some of the girls were like hanging over, like they were the angels
Yes,
hanging over
these
everybody.
angels on wires, you know. Yeah,
And they were also still, it was like a living painting.
yeah.
And I also really liked when the baby Jesus appeared, there was like a ding sound, and then the baby Jesus just appeared, and one of the nuns says, "He was born." I don't know why that cracks me
No, I
up.
loved it too, John. I just had a big smile on my face.
And then you've got this lady coming back. She really wants the girls to pray for her beloved. So she brings a giant cake called sopa inglesia,
Yeah,
which it translates to English soup. It
yeah. It's
apparently is a type of cake, though.
Oh, it is. I've had it before. Although I don't ever remember being like that one, seeing one that large. You know,
Well,
but yeah,
she
they call
claims
it
to have
zoo.
used 70 eggs to make it. So
Yes, it's like a kind of a custard cake thing, you
that's
know.
what it
It's
looked
so
like. It looked really
yeah.
good.
Oh, it looked delicious, right? That was beautiful too. That interesting kind of red. I don't know if that was frosting or what that, red.
I kind of,
Um,
it to me, it looked like a thin layer of like cake,
yes.
but like red cake, like draped over the custard
Yes,
and
it
chocolate.
it did. Yeah, I just like you said, I just again that was foreign to my experience with it, which doesn't mean anything, but still though, I just yeah, it looked so appealing, and which I thought was such a smart decision, just because all the girls were just you just saw those cute little orphan girls. I really wanted some of that cake.
It looked amazing. Well, and different things that we've talked about before. Sarah and I have talked about different like food things that have stuck out in different media. I think it was Meet Me in St. Louis. There's a cake in that movie, and that like she grew up watching that. I didn't watch it until I started doing the podcast, and she wanted to do that. And we talked like it would be really fun to recreate that cake. But if I ever did something like that, I would want to add this cake to the list because I want to try to make this
Absolutely,
cake. It
good
looked
call.
amazing.
Yeah, it does looks amazing.
But this lady, she really wants to talk to the girls and get her to pray for her beloved Count Aldrovandi Kotza, which is apparently someone who's she's not even with anymore. They broke up a while ago.
Yeah, they broke up.
And she's like calling him a brute and then correcting himself like he's not really a brute. And like talking about this woman is just deceiving him. And I want the girls to pray that he comes to his senses. And I love the looks the nuns were giving to each other, like, we got to get this lady out of here.
I know. We're the nuns. I mean, they were such good actresses. I love the nuns.
Yeah.
I mean, they terrified me, but they were just so good. They were so
Yeah.
good.
The background nuns, like not specifically Mother Superior, but like
Yes.
the other nuns, I really liked them.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
So then that night, Serafina can't sleep. She's still hearing the forbidden song in her head, and she's asking the other girls if they can hear it too. And one of the other little girls tells her that it's just like Mother Superior said, it's because you're wicked. So then the next day, they're having Christmas dinner, which is fettuccine and a pear, which I don't know why that I kind of want that to be a Christmas dinner. I really like the look of those noodles.
Yeah. Exactly. It seems so kind of random too, in a way, doesn't it? But again,
It
it
does.
worked.
I'm assuming like it's obvious, especially from the scene that's coming up, that these nuns don't have much money. So I'm assuming this is probably kind of the best that they can afford.
Yeah.
I'm assuming
Yeah.
noodles are probably
Exactly.
pretty cheap.
Yeah.
And the pears
Yeah.
came from somebody who the night before wanted the girls to pray for somebody. So they're basically just doing the best that they can.
Right. Right.
But even
And yeah.
so, I thought it looked like a good dinner.
No, I thought so too. Well, and just pasta is such a staple,
Hmm.
in Italian cooking. So yeah.
But then they also have this cake that they make a big deal about talking about this cake is coming. But then Mother Superior wants one of the other nuns to go and get the bishop's herald because she wants to send him a present. And then she leaves and goes to get him. And then they bring out the cake. And she tells them that she wants the girls to think about those who have less than they do and sacrifice their slice of cake for the Lord. And she gives, in my opinion, a very manipulative speech telling
Oh,
the girls to basically give up their cake. Like not telling them that they have to, but like, I mean, who's going to say no
Just
when you're a little kid giving this speech?
guilting these cute little girls, the way that, yeah, yeah.
And then tells everybody that's going to agree to stand up. And everyone does, except for Serafina. And she questions her and she said, just looks at her and says, I'm wicked. You told me so.
Yeah.
Uh, I think the term for this would be malicious compliance, even though I'm sure she
Yes.
doesn't mean anything malicious by this. She's too innocent for this to be like really malicious thought behind this.
Right. Right.
And this is the point where I briefly thought that maybe the nun would have a change of heart. But she looks at her and she has no response and then goes and cuts her a slice. But then everybody's just standing around just watching her, waiting for her to eat this. And then there's this tiny little dog that has kept showing up that all the nuns are really annoyed by. So she grabs a handful of cake and tosses it to this dog. And then Mother Superior freaks out and sends everybody out of the room. And then you got the bishop's herald coming in, and like she had planned for this cake to be given to the bishop, and that's why she wanted this herald to come and take it. But obviously now there's a big slice out of it, so she can't. So she wants them to make an excuse and send him away. And then a chimney sweep shows up and wants to be paid for what he's done for them, but she doesn't have the money. So she gives him what little money she has and sends the rest of the cake with him, which, like, technically this is a nice gesture, but she's so rude about it.
She's just so, yeah, she's so raw to the chimney sweep, I think, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yes, she's being nice by giving him this giant cake, but then she's like, get out of my sight.
Yeah. She handles it in such a bad way. Yeah.
Yeah. But then we cut back to the girls and see Serafina handing out bits of cake because she'd grabbed a handful of cake on her way out. And now all of the girls are sharing it. And I love that one of them says, we're lucky that Serafina is wicked.
I know. It was that a great line. And again, it just shows, I just thought Seraphina, just a wonderful character she is.
Yes.
And she's, here the nuns are just being kind of jerky. And she's just this innocent girl who does it good. She doesn't keep the cake for herself. She gives some to the dog. And then
Uh-huh.
she shares it with all of her fellow orphans. And it's adorable. It's adorable.
Yeah. And then we go back to the chimney sweep, and he's bringing the cake to his crew, and he trips and falls
He
face first into the
falls
cake,
into this cake.
which seems like it's going to be a tragedy. But then the sweeps don't care, and they say it's still good and start eating it off the
Yeah,
ground
they just roll with it. They're like, whatever.
alongside the little dog who'd followed the sweep.
Yeah, the dog. Again, one of those fun little layers of detail, right? In this story.
And then you've got the girls singing about the moral of the story and asking what it could be. And they basically says, who knows? Destiny works in mysterious ways.
Didn't you love that? I just loved that. See, and what a great moral, because I was just enjoying the ride, John.
Hmm.
I wasn't I mean, I was wondering, okay, I wonder what the meaning of the story, or just also was very curious to how this is going to, come together. And I just love that.
I think
Just,
it kind of made sense to basically say that there's not like one really true meaning to everything. Because,
yeah,
like, the feeling I got, because at the beginning there was some narration talking about these events being inspired by a letter, which leads me to believe that all of this is something that actually happened at one point. Like, I'm sure it's been fictionalized a bit, but something like this probably happened.
yeah,
And sometimes just random things happen. And I kind of like that they just made a story out of this random thing that might have happened
yeah,
at one point.
yeah. I did too. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I enjoyed this one. It's probably not going to be one that's like a yearly rotation, but I enjoyed watching it. And if somebody wants a random Christmas thing that they've never watched before, check this one out.
Yeah, absolutely. Because also it clearly, it's set at Christmas time
Hmm.
and they do the Christmas pageant and everything, but it didn't really feel Christmassy at all to me.
Christmas was just kind of a thing that was happening in the background.
Yeah, yeah. Which still though was just part of the charm,
Yeah.
but I'm with you. It's not like it's gonna be in the rotation, and that's not a criticism of it necessarily. It's just like it doesn't seem very Christmassy, but it sure was a well-made short film.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed it.
I did too. And again, thanks to you, I would never have seen it. I didn't even know it existed. So
I probably wouldn't have seen it either, except I had seen the trailer for An Almost Christmas Story and started looking into
yeah,
it, and
yeah.
then realized that Alfonso Cuarón had made three shorts for Disney Plus. And I was like, oh, maybe that should be a podcast.
Oh, absolutely. So again, I'm just thank you.
Well, let's move on to the second one, The Shepherd.
And this is the one where I had seen a trailer for, so but again, I
Mhm.
didn't realize it was part of this, three films.
And this one is based on a book that I'm not sure that I've ever heard of, but it is apparently kind of a staple in England. It's not something that I don't think has been ever made into a film before, but from what I was reading, there's a whole bunch of like radio plays that have been done about this. Like it's been made and remade several times for radio.
Okay.
Because if you go to the wiki page for the book, The Shepherd, it says the story has been broadcast nearly every Christmas since 1979.
Oh, interesting. And the director, Ian, I'm not sure if he's having him saying or if it's just Ian softly. He's a Brit, so you just wonder if it's something that he grew up with.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's big in Canada too, because
Oh,
it
okay.
says CBC Radio 1. That's where it's been at least read every year. But then it's been turned into radio plays, it sounds like, for
Okay.
the UK, which is interesting because I've never heard of this story before.
Oh, I hadn't either. I mean, it felt reminiscent of like some old World War II movies that I've seen on like Turner Classic Movies or something. But not necessarily this storyline per se, but maybe it was just the setting.
Sounds like it's been made into an animated film too. I didn't even notice that until just now.
Oh, interesting. What is that?
Something, it's not clickable on Wikipedia, so it's apparently not a big studio, but Back Garden Films. In 2022, they released a 33-minute animated short
Oh,
based
wow.
on it. It says the short was directed, written, animated, and voiced by Stephen Parker. None of that is clickable.
Is it also still called The Shepherd?
It is, yeah. It looks like it's on Wikipedia too.
Interesting.
Wish I hadn't found that before we started recording and
I
could
know,
talk
right?
about that too.
We could have watched that. We'll have to try to hunt it down. Wonder if it's on YouTube or something.
It is. I'm guessing this must be like an independent film.
Okay. Be interesting to see another interpretation of this story.
Yeah. Anyways, we can talk about the Disney version. Other than, of course, John Travolta, did you recognize anyone that was in this?
No. How about you?
I don't think I did. There was a couple people that I thought I recognized, but then I looked them up and I was like, maybe I don't actually
Yeah.
recognize them.
Yeah. I only recognize John Travolta. That lead actor, Ben Radcliffe, maybe I've seen him in something else, but I
And just looking at his
yeah,
credits, I
I
don't
am
recognize
too.
anything. So
Yeah.
anyway, this story, watching it, I kind of got like Twilight Zone vibes off of this.
Oh yeah.
Like not
It
one of the scary ones, one of the like the nicer Twilight Zone episodes.
it reminded me very much of one of those Twilight Zone episodes, about, like the World War I or World War II fighters that had some kind of like a, supernatural experience up in the sky.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm with you. It wasn't creepy or scary at all. It's kind of in a way it's inspiring, I think.
Yeah, because it's like a ghost story, but it's not like a scary ghost story.
Yes. Yes.
Like helpful ghosts.
You're right. Or almost like, and like, again, from a more religious viewpoint, from like an angel in a way, even though the angel is John Travolta in an airplane.
Yeah, you could interpret it that way because like there's not like it's never actually said like yes, this is this guy and he died, but it's like he looks like this guy. So
Yes.
you never know.
Yeah.
But the story is like it's basically really simple. It's about this guy who is stationed in Germany. He can't go visit his family for Christmas, but then one of
And
the
he's a
other
Brit, right? Yeah, he's British, right? So yeah.
yeah, and one of the other pilots gets injured in a snowball fight, so he can't fly. So he's allowed to take his plane so he can go home for Christmas. But then he's flying over the North Sea and he has some kind of a malfunction. And I'm not sure if it's supposed to like imply that something supernatural is happening before the ghosts show up, but like there's like an aurora that I like that visual of him like flying through this
I did
aurora.
too. I like the video. I thought that was it had very good special effects. I thought,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But then his compass stops working and he can't see anything because there's too much fog and he's gonna run out of fuel. But then this pilot shows up, John Travolta, who helps him get out of this fog and touch down safely on this old, apparently abandoned base.
abandoned airfield, right?
But there's somebody there who has turned on the lights for him. And then he learns from this guy that this person who helped him get down there died years ago because he sees a picture that looks like this guy and he points it out and he's like, oh, it couldn't have been him because he died. But then people show up to come and help him, like find him, and they basically tell him that he's at an abandoned base and there's nobody there. So even the guy who tells him that it was impossible for this other guy to have helped him, apparently he was also a ghost.
Yeah.
So he's just basically bewildered, but he leaves with them and he's heading for home, and that's where it ends. I was kind of hoping we'd see him meet his family, but
I know, me too. I was in a way I was a little, I don't know, disappointed is the word, but I thought it was kind of a bummer that we didn't get to see that reunion. Like, we just can kind of imagine what it's like. But yeah, it's so it is. It's like this kind of happy ghost story.
yeah,
And really, I don't know if moody is the right word, John, but it's all because it's all, like it takes place at night and it's cloudy and
hmm
um it really sets kind of the stage of, it's kind of in a way kind of like this mystery, like, oh dear, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen?
hmm They do a good job setting the tone of this thing,
They
especially like
do.
it takes a while for him. Like he's flying up there in the sky for a long time.
Yeah.
It's not that long of a short, but it felt longer than I think it was because he's just kind of alone, thinking he's gonna die basically for the longest time.
Yeah, I had the same thought too. And I guess, they had to really try to bump up the drama of it, but I almost felt like it was too long in the sky.
I don't
Like,
think I felt like that the first time I watched it, but the second time I watched it, I felt like I was getting bored because I already knew what was going to happen.
yeah,
So
you
then it
already
just felt
knew.
like it was taking too long to
It's
get
like,
to
when
the.
is John Travolta gonna show up?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But other than that, I enjoyed this one.
I did too. I enjoyed it. I only watched it the one time, but yeah.
And it's a bit of a different thing to watch at Christmas, but if you're looking for something beyond Rudolph and Frosty, I think this is a good one.
Yeah, because again, he's trying, clearly he's trying to get home for the holiday, and yeah, it's one again one of those. It's just like it's interesting. It's kind of Christmas is still kind of in the background,
Yeah.
but still, I guess that's kind of the intent that he's trying to, this pilot's trying to get home to spend Christmas with his loved ones. But yeah, it's interesting. I thought, well made, maybe a little too long.
I think it's a good length. I just think that it would have been better to take out some of the time spent in the airplane and put it at the end so he can meet with his family.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, perfectly well said.
Again, I don't think it'll be one that's like on rotation, but it's a good thing to watch for just something different. If you have your old staples and you run out of the ones that you watch every year and you want to add something new, this is a good one.
Well, and one thing that I appreciate through this process, and I know we can get more when we're talking about this third one too, but it's cool that Disney Plus is putting some kind of avant-garde programming out there.
Yes. And I noticed I haven't watched any of them. I noticed there were a bunch more, like not Christmas ones, just
Yes.
shorts. And I'm like, maybe that should be a podcast in the future. Watch some of these other shorts that I
Yeah.
would not watch otherwise. They looked interesting.
Right. That are out on Disney Plus and and who knew?
Yeah. Like I knew that they had done a few, but there were more than I
There
realized
were
there
quite
were.
a few that were showing up, like you also might like or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever, however that's worded on this, on the interface.
hmm Yeah, so I'll have to look into those for the future. The last film is the one that kind of started this whole thing because I saw the trailer for An Almost Christmas Story, and I instantly wanted to watch this thing. Like, number one, it's stop motion animation.
Stop motion animation. Yes.
And number two, it's an owl. I love owls. And this owl
Okay.
specifically is so cute.
Well, the owl was, I think, my favorite part about it. Well, I know we'll get into the details, but I just loved the design of the puppet.
Oh,
You
me
know, the
too.
puppets of the particular owl. Little Moon, right? Is that the name of the
Yes.
owl?
Yeah.
Moon. Yeah.
There's three owls. There's Moon and his father, voiced by Jim Gaffigan, and then his little sibling. I'm not sure if it was a brother or sister, but Peaky was the name.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't sure if it
That
was
thing was so cute.
so adorable.
At the
Oh.
beginning, when Moon accidentally wrecks the nest, Peaky looks at him and says, "You broke it," and flops down on their face.
Yep.
The delivery of that kid. I wanted more of Peaky.
Yeah, Peaky was kind of like stole the show, I thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
Moon was great too, though. I like it when they have a child character voiced by a child.
Yeah,
And
I do
both of these
too.
kids were, well, and then the human child also. That it was
Yes.
such good voice acting.
Yeah, I agree. That was really nice. And I could just have looked at Moon all day. I mean, again, I just loved every little detail about the puppet or, the
Yes.
puppets that they used.
So
Just
well
even,
designed.
yeah, so beautifully designed. Yeah.
And like not fully realistic, but more realistic than you would expect. Like the
Yes.
proportions were like perfect.
Yeah.
I loved the little feet too, the little legs.
Oh, I did too. Yes. Well, it's just everything from the feathers to just all the way that they almost creases like in Moon's, face around his eyes. And
Uh-huh.
oh, it's just really, really cool. Just a wonderful attention to detail in this.
Well, this story is based on a true story. Had you heard about the owl at Rockefeller Center?
If I had, John, I had forgotten about it.
It was a
It
few
seemed
years
vaguely,
ago,
yeah, it seemed vaguely familiar. Like I'd seen a news story or something about it.
and this is obviously a very fictionalized version. I actually thought that this was going to be based, like there's a book that called The Christmas Owl. I actually bought a copy for my niece for Christmas because I had bought one for one of my nephews last year, and I really liked this book. The illustrations were great. It was written by one of the people who rescued the owl.
Oh,
And it's also fictionalized a bit because the owl kind of is personified and talks to other animals. So it's not like the true story.
yeah, yeah,
It's different than this. So this is not based on that book, but it's based on that event of a little owl that actually was stuck in the tree that became the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree and had to be rescued and rehabilitated and released. So two different stories based on the same event, but the event itself, it's just perfect for a story like this. Like it
yeah,
feels like something that somebody made up, like a little Christmas owl in a Christmas tree.
yeah.
It doesn't feel like an actual story, but it actually did happen.
But then it really happened. That is, yeah, that's so cool because I agree with you. It just felt so made up. But
Hmm.
I'm curious about that book. Thanks for the tip. I'll need to snag that book. It sounds very charming.
Yeah, it's called The Christmas Owl, and it's written by Ellen Kalish
Okay,
and
okay.
Gideon Sterer. And Ellen is the one who helped rescue the owl.
Oh,
And
nice.
she has a little thing at the end of the book that talking about like the real story.
Like the actual, yes,
Yeah.
not kind of this kind of added stuff for dramatic effects.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one is probably even more fictionalized than that because the Christmas Owl has Ellen as a character rescuing the owl, which is something that actually happened. This is he gets stuck in this tree and ends up lost in New York and meeting this little girl who helps him and takes him around the city, and he meets a dog and some pigeons and a folk singer voiced by John C. Riley who keeps popping up through the whole thing singing songs.
Yeah, because I as I mentioned, John, at the beginning, I saw John C. Riley promoting this on Good Morning America, one morning not too long ago, and he was saying that he was trying to channel Burl Ives because he loved
I could see that. I could see
yeah,
that.
he
Yeah.
loved those I think is it Rudolph I can't remember, is it one of those Rankin Bass
He might
specials
do
has
more than one. I feel like he does a snowman.
I
Maybe that was
yeah,
Rudolph. It's been
I
forever since I've seen those.
yes, likewise. But I'm picturing, yeah, Burl Ives is the snowman, and I'm thinking that it's Rudolph. But it seemed to me that Burl Ives did more than one. And again, we'll have to, I know we could look that up. But I thought that was just that's what really stuck with me in the, in that brief interview is that he was because you can tell, watching this, watching an almost Christmas story that yeah, he really is channeling, it's just is he's very much like Burl Ives.
Now that you mentioned Burl Ives, the character thinking about it, he kind of reminds me. It's different because it's not as big of a character. But have if you've seen the old Disney movie Summer Magic,
Yes. Oh yeah. With
the
Burl
Burl
Ives.
Ives character in that kind
Yeah.
of has vibes of this folk singer
Yes.
character,
Absolutely.
just kind of popping up and singing a little folk
And
song.
singing a song. Yeah. And very kind of with that very charming Burl Ives delivery.
Yeah, I also liked the characters of the pigeons.
The pigeons, yes.
At first they're kind of like trying to pick a fight with him. They end up helping him, but the lead pigeon, voiced by Natasha Leone, I'm not sure how to pronounce
Yeah.
her last name. I didn't realize that was her, and not that I've seen her in a lot of things, but I think she did a good job with this voice
I did too.
of this rough street pigeon voice. I thought she
Yeah.
did a good job, and she had a lot of good lines.
Yeah. I liked her performance. The pigeons were really good. Yeah, I thought too in the story. And again, I loved how the pigeons were animated. Again, I love the puppets. I love how they were animated.
Yes. I'm not sure like what the materials were, but like for most of the
Yes.
stuff in the background, was it all built out of cardboard?
It looked like cardboard to me, or some kind of paper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure about the pigeons and Moon and Luna, the little girl that helps him, but the people in the background, I think they were all made out of but at least partially made out of cardboard,
Yes.
just
Yes.
kind of like painted, which I thought was kind of genius in a way
I
because
did too.
I'm sure this did not get a huge budget. And like the characters that are in the background, you don't really need them to be like full on puppets
Right.
like Luna. Like it kind of just made sense to build them out of cardboard and have them not move a whole lot.
Yeah. I thought it was a really good artistic decision, and also just made it visually just a lot more interesting, to
Hmm.
look at. Like, oh, that, yeah, just same thing like, oh, that's an interesting way to represent that. I like that.
Yeah. And even some of the more detailed stuff, like the taxi cab and maybe the train as well, but for sure the taxi cab was built out of cardboard. Like when
Yes.
it stops right in front of her, you could see
Yes.
cardboard details.
Right. Exactly. Which was, yeah, it was just really unique, wasn't it?
But they don't do it in a way like when you think if somebody told you that this movie was built out of cardboard, would like you'd be like, well, that sounds kind of cheap. But the way they did it, it didn't feel cheap.
No,
It felt really good. Like
yeah, it felt really artistic and almost elegant in a way.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. They did a really good job building this whole movie.
Hmm. Yeah, agreed.
But this little girl is also really cute. Sure, her name is Luna,
She's adorable.
and they don't ever call it out, but she basically has the same name as Moon. Luna and
Yeah,
Moon.
Luna and Moon. Yep.
Like, obviously that's on purpose, but I thought it was interesting that they did that, but then they don't ever acknowledge it on
They
screen.
don't acknowledge it, right? It's just they leave it up to the viewer to
Yeah,
yeah.
which I appreciated.
I did too, actually. Again, just another cool artistic, choice made by the
Yeah.
creative team.
And I liked their conversation. Like, for the most part, they can't really understand each other, but they had a lot of good lines. I think my favorite one was when Luna buys a cookie for them to share, and he takes a bite and says, "This is the worst food I've ever eaten, but you're very kind to hunt it for me."
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you captured that.
And I thought it was also cute. Luna at one point reveals that she has a prosthetic leg, and Moon thinks that that's the coolest thing he's ever seen. And then he's got to
Yeah.
show that he can spin his whole head around.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not as cool as that, but it's something.
Just innocent, I
Yes.
like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And just the voice that they got for the owl, innocent is the perfect way to describe it. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, eventually the pigeons show up again and everybody helps him get back to the tree. And then Luna finds a policeman and they are able to get him out of the tree and bring him back to his family. And they're all reunited as the folk singer is singing, and we roll to the credits.
It's got such a happy ending, and for which I
Yes.
was grateful. I mean, not that I was expecting it to be sad, but you didn't know.
I
But
was
you were kind of
briefly worried that
bitter.
they were going to have the dad die because there was a hawk
Yes,
chasing him at the beginning.
I did too, John, and I was thinking it was going to be like, the little match girl or something. It's just like
Oh,
this really
yeah.
tragic, like, no. But it was pretty heartwarming. Yeah.
Yeah. The Little Match Girl, I haven't thought of that in a while. That short was so depressing.
Oh,
Like
it's
it's a beautiful short,
devastating.
but I don't really want to rewatch that one.
No, and it's like, and even though it's kind of again kind of a Christmassy thing, it's like, oh no, this is so sad.
Yeah.
It's devastating. So I was glad that an almost Christmas story, kept a happier,
Yes.
had a happy ending.
Yes, definitely. And this one I think I would want to put in rotation. I think I would watch this again. I want to show this one to my nephews. I think they would like it.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, of the three, this is the one that I feel like would have some repeatability, and it also feels like a Christmas special.
It
You
does.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The other two, Christmas was just kind of a thing in the background, but
right.
this Christmas is woven throughout the whole thing and it's
Yeah,
front and center.
yes. And and John C. Reilly talked about this too in his that brief interview that I saw, but they were really kind of channeling, speaking of Rankin Bass, trying to make something, with more current artistic sensibilities,
Hmm.
but so fun to have something stop motion.
Yes.
That's such a no it seems like that's just such a novelty these days, and to have something done so well.
Yeah, we don't get a whole lot of stop motion.
No, which I think is unfortunate because I really love it.
Yeah. Especially when it's done this well.
Yeah, this is really done well.
Like I don't ever remember being a huge fan of like the old Rankin Bass stop motion stuff, but like stop motion that they've done more recently these days, like Fantastic Mr. Fox or anything by Leica,
Yes.
like it's so artistically done.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
Isle of Dogs,
Oh
and
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yes, no, I agree, and I like it so much. Well, and I have a sentimental spot. I watch the Rankin Bass stuff as an adult now. I just think, oh, I'm so bored, it but it's still there's a bit of sentimental charm in it for me,
Hmm.
and I love how colorful they are, and again, they brought in some pretty good talent too for the voices, and yeah,
One of these years I've been meaning to like actually watch those because like I vaguely remember watching them as a kid and never really liking them that much. My cousins loved them and they grew up with them watching every year,
yeah,
but we didn't. So they were never a thing that were really part of my childhood.
yeah.
But I've been meaning to go back and watch them as an adult, probably for a podcast. So
Yeah,
one of these years I'll get to that.
see, I think those some of those Rudolph ones are pretty good. I think I remember liking The Year Without a Santa Claus.
Mm. I don't think I
Anyway,
saw that one. I
yeah,
watched the more mainstream ones that they played every year on like the main channels.
yes, yeah, that
There's
was
some
like
obscure ones. Like I actually am doing one for every version ever. The one that I'd never heard of, Pinocchio's Christmas.
oh,
That
yes,
one's one of the more obscure ones.
I don't think I've ever heard or seen that one. Interesting. Well, I'll be
It's
anxious
basically a retelling of Pinocchio, but with a Christmas theme.
with a Christmas theme and with Rankin Bass. Is it stop
Yeah,
motion
yeah,
animation or whatever? Yeah, okay.
it is. Yeah.
Oh, interesting, John. Well, cool. You find these great things, my friend. That's so great.
I like finding obscure things to watch and talk about.
Oh, you do well, Adam, my friend.
Well, thanks for joining me for these three shorts. I'm glad we got to watch these. It's something different.
Me too. Thanks for including me on this, and thanks for, broadening my horizons and introduce me to these three very interesting short films. I just really, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah. And if anybody is listening and needs something new to watch for Christmas, I'd recommend any of these, but especially An Almost Christmas Story. By far my
Yes.
favorite of these
Yeah,
three.
agreed. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we will have you back for something else in the future.
Well, thanks. I'd love it. And thanks for your kindness. And this has been so fun. I hope you have a great rest of the week.
You too. Do you want to let people know where they can find more from you if they would like more in the future?
Absolutely. So I have a podcast called Movies Past and Present, and there are links to it on the website, moviespastandpresent.com. You can also follow me on Instagram. My handle is at moviespap, as in past and present.
Okay. Well, we'll probably see you next year for something else.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Every Version Ever. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.